It means that because of the curvature of the hull, this edge is out much further than the frame itself. I'm going to make corrections to the ones going ahead. I think that'll be an easy fix. So that didn't take long, just taking that off with the handsaw. A bit of extra work to fit some of them, but that's okay. It's all part of boat building, I say. Okay, well this is a little feature insert into this week's video, and how it's come about is from a comment from a video 2 weeks ago, and I can say that I feel so not only pleased but blessed too that I've got people of all walks and backgrounds who are, number one, watching my videos, number two, offering their not only opinions and suggestions but at times coming from professionals. So the comment that I received was from a ship structural engineer from another country. After chatting with that person online, it was very clear to me that they were who they said they were. And what he's done is made comments that when it comes to the holes that I've actually drilled through the framing to pass the conduit and the electrical cables, that this is not being done correctly. As he pointed out, there's nothing wrong with drilling holes through the frames. However, in short, what I've done is I've drilled them in the middle of the frames and in this position without really understanding the engineering consequences. So to point out, as he explained, it is fine to drill holes in frames, through frames, but they need to be hard against the hull. There's also a formula for not having those holes intruding within 25% of the length of the frame being used. We are talking about boats, and in this situation, obviously, each engineering situation has its own challenges and requirements. So to point out, there's nothing wrong with drilling holes through frames, but they do need to be done in a way that complies with structural engineering principles in order for it to be done in a way that's actually safe and sound. So in discussion with this engineer, a couple of good possibilities were talked through about how to actually correct this situation that I've caused, which could potentially cause some weakness in the frames, resulting in cracks where those holes have been pushed through. And so some really good news is that the solution is a very simple one. And I'll just use this timber batten as an example. What can be done is place another knee, a steel support knee, below the holes up to the deck beam, and then with close fit bolting through both the beam and the frame below, that should provide support at those frames where those holes have been drilled through. You can see here the diagram that I was forwarded, and it was made clear that this was something put together in about 2 seconds from this engineer. It makes very clear the resolution to get this fixed. Another bit of good news with this is that there's only really 2 frames where those support knees that I'll put in will be seen. One of them is here in the heads, and as you could appreciate, that knee is really not going to be very obtrusive. They only need to be bolted on just below where the holes have been drilled. And there's another one up in the V-berth as well. Otherwise, all of the other ones will actually be where there's bulkheads, and I'll basically be able to hide those as such. I can't thank this ship structural engineer enough for being in touch and for leaving a comment and letting me know from their professional expertise where I'm going wrong. I welcome that. As I've mentioned before, I'm an amateur at doing this. It's the first time I've built a boat. So your good professional and knowledgeable input is welcomed. Thank you very much. So at some stage ahead, I'll be putting these in place. Okay, so back to the boat work. So another slightly unforeseen on my behalf situation. These battens Because they're mounted onto the frames which are perpendicular to the centre line, it means that because of the curvature of the hull coming forward, this edge is out much further than the frame itself. And so what it means is when it comes to putting the lining on, it's going to sit proud of that frame, and at the most, as you can see, I've put a string line here to the next frame and I continued that on. At the most, it means that this timber batten is going to sit proud by around about 12 millimetres. And so what that would mean is that if you add the other side also, I'd be losing around about 24 millimetres of cabin space. Now, in the scheme of things, I guess it's not a lot in a boat this size, but it just begs the question of why not remove some of this on an angle and take those battens out closer to the frames so that I can just make use of that space in the cabin space rather than have it as a void behind the lining. I've had a good think about how to tackle that, whether to plane it down using a planer or a jigsaw in there to trim it off, or hammer and chisel, or some other powered tool, planer. The other option is to remove them and use the table saw to just trim that off in one very quick, accurate and easy motion. So it would obviously mean removing these. Now, the good thing is there are actually only 4 of the battens that are in this situation that have been mounted like that. I'm going to make corrections to the ones going ahead. I think that'll be an easy fix. And so thankfully the Fix 15 is a compound that you can remove things, but the other good thing is I put these on late last night. It's only early the following morning, and so I'm going to try to remove one. If it comes off easily, I think that'll be the easiest solve. Just remove them, run them through the table saw, take off an angle, and then reinstall them. And so it's only those 3 there and this one here. So that is testament to the Fix 15's holding power. I've just tried to remove this batten here and that does not want to come off. I mean, I'm sure if I got a chisel in there and really pried it, that I could get it off without wrecking things. However, with the plastic chisel, I tried hammering that in with my hand. All it did was make a dent in the end of the chisel. So the Fix 15 is still rubbery on the outside where it's overflowed, but it's obviously really adhering to the frame, between the batten and the frame. And so that's really good news that that bonds super well. But I think it does mean that if I'm going to spend time trying to remove those, making possibly a bit of a mess of it, that it would be better for me to try and just correct these 4 in situ where they are in place. So that's what I'm going to do. Obviously afterwards I'll need to put some epoxy painting on it too. With the other ones that are not on, I can actually cut those on the table saw and get them right before I install them. More learning lessons, and it's fine. It's all part of it. So that didn't take long, just taking that off with the handsaw was easy work actually. What I'll do is get the orbital sander and just run that up and down. I guess the good thing about the orbital sander is I can go right up into the corners, which I can't do with a hand planer, and that will give a much better angle heading forward.
where you will find peace. Take a step into the river, get down on your knees. Come to the mountain while taking in the view. You will find that life is greater than you knew when you go.
So this is the end of the line for the battens, and I'm very happy with the way all the other ones have been going in. A bit of extra work to fit some of them, but that's okay. It's all part of boat building, I say. Now, just to point out, as with the V-berth end of things, I have had to do a little bit of machining with a couple of these battens in the aft end here, and again, that's fine, nothing much. But as you can probably see here, there's a stiffener going between these two frames, and in the building stage that was just to fair the hull on the outside and get all the plating nice and fair. So I've just had to notch that batten out a bit, and that'll fit over there very sweetly. I don't know whether you can see the Fix 15 squeezing out between the batten and the frame. Just to mention, Troy of Fixtech would be happy to see that.
Through the storm, I will hold you, keep you warm. When you stay in the night, I will shelter, I will fight.
So things are going quite well with getting all these battens in. I'm now at the stage where I can put these battens in on the other side of the battens that I've already put in. In other words, where these chain plate knees are, I'm not going to be able to pass the lining right through, of course. So what I need to do is have battens on both sides of each knee, and that's what I'm doing here. What I've had to do is put one side in first, let the Fixtech go off so that it holds that batten in place, so that I can then take the bolts out and put some longer bolts through the battens on the other side, which will pass through the same holes as the battens that I've already put in. If that sounds a bit confusing, I'll show you what's going on. I'm just going to fix this one now because I've already got the Fixtech on and I don't want that to skin over.
You're broken and you're shattered at the point of no return. You pick up the pieces and you let the bridges burn. So come to the water, you're sailing with the breeze. Take a step into the river where you will find peace.
Join me next week, everybody, where there's definitely more going on in Mistress. I do love getting into new jobs, and they are for mounting the cabin sole in this V-berth. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell, and share. I'd really, really appreciate that.
So come to the water where you will find peace.